I came to see a strange little car. The first time I saw it, I honestly thought it looked ridiculous. 3 wheels, a tiny electric motor, no air conditioning, no highway, and a top speed that wouldn't impress anyone back home. If this thing suddenly showed up in a Walmart parking lot somewhere in Texas, people would probably stop, laugh, take a picture, and keep walking. To be honest, I probably would have done the same. Then the driver parked. He climbed out without saying much, walked around the little vehicle, opened the passenger door. A young boy climbed out, rubbing his eyes. The man smiled and quietly said, "Come on, we're going to be late for school." That was the moment I stopped looking at the vehicle and started watching the father. I came to Indonesia expecting to review one of the strangest little electric vehicles I'd ever seen. Instead, I found myself following an ordinary family through one very ordinary day. And somehow, this tiny 3-wheeled car ended up making me think about home. Not because of what it was, but because of why it existed. Before this little car, every morning starts almost exactly the same. The father wakes up before everyone else. He checks the battery, wipes yesterday's dust and rain from the windshield. Not because he's proud of owning the vehicle, but because he knows exactly where his son likes to look while they're driving. The clean window isn't for him. It's for the little passenger sitting beside him. Just a few years earlier, none of this existed. The family only had a motorcycle. When the weather was nice, life felt simple. But tropical rain doesn't ask for permission. Sometimes it arrived halfway home. 3 people squeezed onto one motorcycle. A backpack, groceries hanging from the handlebars. One hand trying to keep everything balanced, another trying to keep the family dry. There were days when they simply pulled over beneath a roof, waiting for the rain to stop. Sometimes the little boy fell asleep on his mother's shoulder before they could continue. Listening to him, I realized something. He was never chasing the dream of owning a car. He wasn't trying to impress the neighbors. He wasn't thinking about horsepower. He was simply trying to make tomorrow morning a little easier than yesterday. And somehow, that felt like a much bigger dream. The biggest purchase of his life. When he first saw the Celis, he didn't smile. That surprised me. Most people remember buying their first vehicle as an exciting day. He remembered it as a frightening one, because this wasn't just another purchase. It was one of the biggest financial decisions he'd ever made. His wife kept asking one question: what if it isn't good? He laughed while telling me the story, but I could still hear the uncertainty hiding behind that laugh. The truth was, he didn't know. Nobody around him owned one. There weren't many reviews, no long-term owners to ask. Just a strange little electric vehicle, and a hope that maybe it could change everyday life. For many families, a dream car is something you save for. For this family, the Celis wasn't the dream. It was simply the first vehicle they could realistically reach. Not because it was perfect, because it was possible. There's a quiet difference between buying what you want and buying what your life allows. Learning to trust something strange. The first drive didn't feel exciting. It felt awkward. The steering was different. The balance felt unfamiliar. Every truck that passed seemed enormous. Every pothole felt bigger than it probably was. For a moment, he honestly believed he'd made a terrible mistake. But looking back now, he doesn't think he was afraid of the vehicle. he was afraid of being wrong. Afraid of spending years of savings on something that wouldn't protect the people he loved. That's a feeling most of us recognize. It doesn't matter whether we're buying a tiny electric tricycle or a brand new pickup truck. The fear isn't really about the machine. It's about the decision. Weeks passed. The strange feelings slowly disappeared. Driving became routine. The roads didn't seem as intimidating anymore. Then, one afternoon, something happened that he still remembers. His little boy fell asleep beside him during the ride home. No excitement, no nervous questions. Just quiet breathing against the window. The father smiled. Not because the battery was still full. Not because the suspension suddenly felt better. Because for the first time, his son looked completely comfortable inside this tiny little cabin. And somewhere in that silent drive, the vehicle stopped feeling like an experiment. It simply became part of the family. A few weeks later, he decided to find out just how much this little three-wheeled car could really do. Not for YouTube, not for views, just for himself. And that journey would become the moment that changed the way I looked at this tiny vehicle forever. The 100-kilometer day. A few weeks later, he decided to do something most people thought was a bad idea. Drive this tiny electric three-wheeler more than 100 kilometers. Not to prove strangers wrong, not to make a viral video. He simply wanted to answer one question. Could his family actually depend on it? Before leaving, he packed something that immediately caught my attention. Not camping gear, not emergency tools, just a charger, a spare battery, some water, a few snacks for his son. It was such a small detail, but it quietly explained everything. He already knew this little vehicle had limits. He wasn't pretending otherwise. He had simply learned how to live with them. As the trip continued, I found myself watching the battery gauge almost as much as he did. After roughly 50 kilometers, it still showed well over half its charge. That surprised me, not because the number was extraordinary, because I expected the entire journey to become a story about battery anxiety. Instead, it slowly became a story about trust. The battery wasn't the thing changing. The family's confidence was. Halfway through the trip, I realized something unexpected. I had completely stopped judging the vehicle. Instead, I was watching how often the father glanced toward his son. That seemed to matter much more than the battery percentage ever could. Somewhere along the way, looking back, the moment I remember most wasn't reaching the destination. It wasn't the range. It wasn't even the vehicle itself. It was the little boy. He spent most of the trip quietly looking out the window, watching motorcycles weave through traffic, pointing at food carts, laughing whenever another three-wheeler appeared. The world outside seemed endlessly interesting. Then, without anyone noticing, he slowly leaned against the window. His eyes closed. Within minutes, he was asleep. The father immediately eased off the throttle, not because the road changed, because he didn't want to wake his son. That tiny decision lasted only a few seconds, but somehow it told me more about this family than any specification sheet ever could. The father never talked about horsepower. He never mentioned torque. He didn't care whether people thought the Cellus looked funny. He only cared whether his son was comfortable, whether they stayed dry when it rained, whether they could make it home without worrying. Without realizing it, I wasn't watching someone review a vehicle anymore. I was watching a father quietly solve ordinary problems. And maybe that's why this story stayed with me. Then I started thinking about home. Watching the two of them reminded me of someone back in Texas. Every weekday, my friend spends nearly an hour driving to work. Not because he enjoys it, because that's simply how life is built where he lives. The office is far away, school is far away, the grocery store is another drive. Almost every part of daily life begins with a set of car keys. This father measured his mornings in minutes. My friend measured his in miles. Neither one of them designed that life. They simply grew into the places they called home. That's when I realized something. Maybe we spend too much time asking whether a vehicle is good and not enough time asking what kind of life it was designed for. At first, I thought Americans would never want something like this. Now, I'm not so sure that was the right question. Maybe Americans don't avoid tiny vehicles because they dislike them. Maybe the distances they travel every day simply ask for something different. And maybe this little three-wheeler isn't strange at all. It's perfectly ordinary, just in a completely different world. What if they switched lives? I kept wondering, what if this father suddenly moved to Arizona, or Texas, or somewhere outside Phoenix, where the nearest grocery store might be 20 miles away? I honestly think he'd probably end up buying an SUV. Not because he'd changed, because his life had. Then I imagined the opposite. What if my friend from Texas suddenly moved into this neighborhood? The school only a few minutes away. Small streets, busy markets, motorcycles everywhere. Would he still need a full-size pickup? Maybe, maybe not. That's when it finally clicked. We like to think people choose their vehicles. Sometimes that's true. But most of the time, our lives quietly choose for us. The real surprise. When I boarded the plane to Indonesia, I thought I was coming to see one of the strangest little electric vehicles in the world. Technically, I did, but that's not what I remember. I remember a father wiping rain off the windshield before his son climbed in. I remember the nervous smile when he talked about spending almost all of his savings. I remember the quiet relief after 50 kilometers. I remember a little boy falling asleep against the window. Those are the moments that stayed with me, not the specifications. The Cielus still isn't fast. It still wouldn't survive an American freeway. It still isn't something I'd drive where I live. But every time I think about that little three-wheeled car now, I don't picture the vehicle first. I picture a father opening the passenger door, waiting for his son, then quietly driving off toward another completely ordinary morning. And somehow, that turned out to be the real surprise.